Don't you dare ask us to cancel our plans again. We've had these Elton John tickets for months, my mother shouted, her voice loud through the hospital room speaker. I sat there, shocked, holding my phone with shaking hands. It was Christmas Eve at Los Angeles Medical Center. My 2-year-old twins, John and Jennifer, were playing quietly in the corner, while a kind nurse named Linda was checking my vitals. The pain in my stomach was unbearable, like someone was twisting a knife inside me. But what hurt even more was seeing how little my mom cared during the video call. My name is Patricia Heaton. I'm 35 years old, and for as long as I can remember, I've always been treated like an outsider in my own family. My younger sister Mary is the favorite. She can do no wrong in my parents' eyes. Meanwhile, I couldn't even get them to look after their only grandkids while I faced emergency surgery. The doctors found internal bleeding that needed immediate surgery. I had no one else to call. But all my parents cared about was going to their concert and spending Christmas Eve with Mary. When I finally begged them for help after trying every other option, my dad said something I'll never forget. You're becoming a real problem, Patricia. We're retired now. We deserve to enjoy life without dealing with your mess. That broke me more than any surgery ever could. I've been helping my parents with money ever since they retired early 4 years ago. Every single month, I sent them $3,000 to help with their bills. Even after my husband David died 7 months ago, I kept doing it because I believed that's what family does. Now I realize how wrong I was. As tears rolled down my cheeks and onto the hospital blanket, Linda gently touched my shoulder and said, "My friend Laura is a professional nanny. She works with kids who've been through tough times. Let me give her a call for you." She showed me kindness, the total opposite of how cold my parents had been. My twins were still too young to understand what was going on. They had already lost their dad in a car accident, and now, if something went wrong with my surgery, they could lose me too. That thought terrified me. But even scarier was the idea of leaving them with people who didn't truly care about them. People who saw them as a problem. With pain shooting through my body and my heart full of disappointment, I made up my mind. "Yes, please call her," I told Linda. And with that, I took the first step toward letting go of the toxic people who raised me but never truly loved me. After I ended the call, old memories came flooding back. My childhood was full of moments where I was ignored, while Mary always got the praise. When I graduated college with honors, my parents barely said anything because Mary had been in a local commercial that weekend. When I married David, they complained the wedding location was too far. Even when the twins were born, they only visited once and said the babies were too loud. David was my biggest support. He knew what it felt like to be let down by family. He hadn't spoken to his own father in years. "We'll make our own family," he used to say. "A family that knows how to love." And we did. We built a warm home full of laughter, love, and kindness. But 7 months ago, a drunk driver took him away. Since then, I've been raising our kids alone, struggling with depression and grief. Even after everything, I kept helping my parents. I even gave them more money when they said inflation was making things hard. I wanted to be better than them. I wanted to show that families should stick together. But the truth hit me hard. Here I was, possibly dying, and they couldn't even skip one concert to help watch my kids. Linda came back and told me her friend Laura would be there within an hour. "She's amazing with children," Linda said. "She used to work with kids dealing with trauma at the children's hospital. Now she's a private nanny." I nodded, then asked, "How much will this cost?" I was worried. David's insurance didn't cover everything, and the medical bills were already piling up. "Don't worry about that right now," Linda said gently. "Let's just get you ready for surgery." But I couldn't stop worrying. I thought about the $3,000 I was supposed to send my parents next week. That money could be used to care for my children instead. That thought lit a small spark inside me, something I hadn't felt in years. A sense of strength and the need to protect myself. When Laura arrived, she was just like Linda said, kind, calm, and instantly great with the twins. As the hospital staff got me ready for surgery, I finally felt a little less afraid. I made up my mind. "Can you please bring me my phone one more time?" I asked Linda with shaky hands. I sent 3 messages. The first one was to my bank. I asked them to stop all future automatic money transfers to my parents' account. The third message was to my parents. I will no longer be sending you money. My children and I deserve better than being treated like we don't matter. Please don't contact me again. As they rolled my bed toward the surgery room, I felt something I didn't expect: freedom. Even with all the pain and fear, I felt like a heavy weight had been lifted. The surgery went well, but it left me weaker than the doctors expected. I stayed in the hospital for 6 days, going in and out of sleep. Through it all, I was so thankful for Laura. She stayed with the twins during the day in my hospital room and took them home to my apartment at night. One day, when I was more awake, I saw my phone flashing. I had 35 missed calls and lots of messages from my parents and Mary. Most of the messages were what I expected. First, they were confused, then angry. Then came the desperate messages about needing money for their mortgage. Not one of them asked how my surgery went. Not once did they ask if the twins were okay. The last message from my dad said a lot. You can't just stop sending money like this. We booked a cruise next month, and the tickets are non-refundable. Mary's messages were different. She sounded confused. Mom and Dad just told me you were having a small procedure. What's going on? Why are they freaking out about money? That's when I realized my parents had lied to Mary. They told her I was just going for a simple checkup so they could justify going to the concert instead of helping me or their grandchildren. I decided to tell her everything. Even though I was still feeling weak from the medicine, I wrote out the full story and sent it to her. Her reply came quickly. Oh my God, Patricia. I had no idea it was an emergency surgery. They told me you were just being dramatic. I would have taken care of the twins if I had known. I'm so sorry. I believed her. Mary wasn't mean. She was just raised in a house where she was always told that her needs mattered more than anyone else's. Maybe now, she would finally see our parents for who they really were. By the time I left the hospital, I had made a few clear decisions. First, I hired Laura to work part-time and help me take care of the twins while I recovered. I contacted a lawyer to help me make a will. I chose a trusted friend to be the twins' guardian in case something ever happened to me. I knew I didn't want my parents to have that role. Next, I blocked my parents' phone numbers. I only kept limited contact with Mary while I figured out if she was being honest with me. Stopping the $3,000 I used to send my parents every month had a big impact. That money was almost 1/3 of what I earned as a graphic designer. Without that extra burden, I could finally afford proper childcare. I also hoped to start saving again, especially since I had used up most of my emergency fund after David passed away. That night, lying in my own bed with the twins sleeping in their room across the hall, I felt a mix of emotions. I felt guilty, like I had done something wrong for putting my children and myself first. I felt scared, too. I was still healing, and taking care of 2 toddlers on my own wasn't easy. But for the first time, I also felt a new kind of strength, self-respect. Then my phone buzzed with a message from Mary. I just had a huge fight with Mom and Dad about how they treated you. I'm staying at a hotel tonight. Can we talk tomorrow? Maybe I wasn't completely alone after all. 3 weeks after surgery, I was slowly getting better. The spot where they made the cut still hurt when I moved too quickly, but each day I felt stronger. Laura had been a lifesaver. She showed up every morning to help with the twins while I worked from home. My graphic design clients were very kind and understanding about my limited work hours. I was thankful I could still earn money while staying close to my kids. Mary visited me twice during that time. She brought healthy food and spent time with the twins. At first, we were careful with our words, but over time, she started opening up. One evening, while watching the twins play, she admitted something. They always made it seem like you were the one pulling away from the family, she said quietly. I didn't realize they were the ones pushing you out. I started to see a different side of my sister, someone who had also been fooled by our parents for years. I wasn't ready to fully trust her yet, but I appreciated that she was trying. Then came a knock at the door, the one I had a feeling would come eventually. I looked through the peephole and saw my parents standing outside. My mom held her fancy purse and looked nervous. My dad stood there with his arms crossed, wearing the same impatient look I knew so well. My heart pounded, but I stayed calm. I opened the door just a little, enough to speak through the small gap. "What do you want?" I asked, my voice steady. I expected this, I thought as I opened the door. "Patricia, darling, we've been so worried," my mom said in a sweet voice that instantly made me put my guard up. "You haven't been answering our calls. We just wanted to make sure you and the twins were okay." "We're fine," I replied, keeping my voice flat. "If that's all." "It's not," my dad cut in, leaning slightly against the door. "We need to talk about this money problem. The bank called us about the mortgage, and we had to use our cruise savings to pay it." I was shocked. Not a single question about how I was doing after surgery. No concern about the twins. Just complaints about money. "I told you, I'm not sending any more money," I said firmly. And I meant it. "But sweetie," my mom said, her voice going higher, "we've come to depend on that money. Your father and I made changes in our life because we thought you'd always help us." "My commitment," I said, feeling disbelief. "I sent you money because I felt guilty, not because you earned it. You couldn't even take care of your grandkids while I was having emergency surgery." My dad's face turned serious. "That's not fair, Patricia. We had plans. Plans that were more important than your grandchildren's safety? More important than my life," I said, my voice getting louder. "The doctor told me there was a chance I wouldn't survive that surgery. Did either of you ever ask how I was doing?" They said nothing. That silence said everything. "We made one mistake," my mom whispered, sounding dramatic. "Are you really going to punish us for it?" "This isn't punishment, Mom. This is the result of your choices," I said, feeling strangely calm. "My whole life, I've tried to earn your love and support. And when I needed you the most, you chose Elton John tickets over your daughter and her kids." "We're your parents," my dad said, trying to sound like he was in charge. "And I'm a parent too," I said right back. "And I would never treat John and Jennifer the way you've treated me. Never." Just then, little Jennifer came walking into view, holding her stuffed giraffe. My mom quickly changed her tone. "There's my sweet grandbaby," she cooed, bending down. "Grandma brought you some presents." But Jennifer, unsure about these people she barely knew, took a step back. She looked at me with confusion in her eyes. "I think you should leave," I said quietly. "If I ever feel ready to talk, I'll reach out." "But the money," my dad started to say. "That's not your concern anymore," I said, gently closing the door. The next morning, my parents came back, but this time they brought someone with them. My Aunt Rebecca, my mom's sister. She had always tried to act like the family peacemaker. "Patricia, honey, be reasonable," Aunt Rebecca said from outside the door, which I still hadn't opened. "Your parents are struggling without your help. They handled their money just fine for years before I started helping," I answered through the door. "They chose to retire early, even though they knew their savings wouldn't be enough." Then my mom's voice broke in. "We made those choices because you promised to help us. Now we had to cancel our cruise, and we might even lose our house. But now I saw through it. Their guilt trips didn't work on me anymore. For years, they made me feel responsible. But when had I ever promised to support them forever? I had only offered to help for a while after they retired. Somehow, they turned that into a lifetime promise. Mom, Dad, I just had major surgery. I'm also taking care of 2 small kids," I said firmly. "This conversation is over." I walked away, ignoring their knocking and begging. Later that day, I got an email from my dad. It was sent to the whole extended family. In it, he claimed that I had abandoned them when they needed me the most, even after they had sacrificed everything for me. Of course, he didn't mention that they refused to help me during my emergency surgery or care for their grandchildren. Instead, he made me look like a selfish daughter who had stopped helping them without warning. But things didn't go as they planned. My cousin Timothy, who lives close to my parents, replied to the email thread. "Uncle Nicholas, didn't you just buy a new boat last month? And Aunt Michelle, wasn't that a new diamond bracelet you were showing off at Thanksgiving?" Other family members started replying too. Many of them messaged me privately to ask what really happened. Even Aunt Rebecca called me. "I had no idea about your surgery," she said. They told me you were being dramatic about a regular checkup and using it as an excuse to stop helping them. Meanwhile, Mary had fully taken my side. After seeing how our parents really behaved, Mary helped me write a short and honest reply to the family email. It said, "I recently had emergency surgery that came with serious risks. My parents refused to watch my kids during that time because they had concert tickets. I'm now focusing on healing and taking care of my twins without extra stress." The support that came afterward surprised me. Timothy's wife dropped off warm, home-cooked meals. A second cousin I hardly knew offered to help babysit the twins for free. Mary started spending weekends at my apartment, getting to know her niece and nephew, and helping me recover. The biggest surprise came from Linda, the nurse at the hospital. She connected me with a support group for young widowed parents. Their first meeting was on Zoom, so I could join from home. For the first time since David died, I felt like I was surrounded by people who truly understood what I was going through. They had been through similar pain, and it made me feel less alone. Meanwhile, my parents' money problems got worse. They had been living a lifestyle they couldn't afford, depending on my monthly payments to keep things going, fancy trips, expensive things, and more. Mary later found out they had taken a second loan on their house last year to buy a boat. They assumed I'd keep paying their regular mortgage forever. They've been lying to everyone, Mary told me after going through their finances. They're not broke. They've just spent too much. They'd be okay if they sold the boat and the vacation timeshare. My parents kept sending me messages and leaving voicemails, sounding more and more desperate. But I didn't feel guilty anymore. Their control over me was fading. I was finally building something real, a support system made up of people who cared about me, not people who only wanted something from me. Then, 1 month after my surgery, something big happened. Mary called me. Her voice was filled with both concern and frustration. "They just got a foreclosure notice," she said. "They're totally panicking. The bank gave them 70 days to catch up on payments, or they'll lose the house." "What about their retirement savings?" I asked the question while gently bouncing Jennifer on my knee. John was napping nearby. Mary let out a sigh. "Their savings are almost gone. They spent a big chunk on the boat. Then Dad invested the rest into some plan his golf friend told him about. They lost nearly everything." "I'm not saying you should help them, Patricia," she added. "I just thought you should know." That evening, I got more desperate messages from both of my parents. They weren't even pretending to care about me anymore. They were just begging for money. My mom's text stood out the most. "We never thought you'd actually cut us off. We figured you were just upset and would start sending money again after a week or two." That message made me angry. They truly believed I had no real limits. All those years of putting them first, of letting them treat me poorly, they had never respected me. But while their world was falling apart, mine was slowly improving in ways I never imagined. The support group had become something I deeply depended on. Through it, I met other parents who understood my pain and struggles. That's how I met Michelle, a real estate agent whose husband died from cancer 3 years ago. She had a 3-year-old son. Michelle gave me ideas I hadn't thought about, like selling my too small apartment and using the money to move to a better, more affordable area with good childcare options. At the same time, I had started a small side business. I was making memorial websites, inspired by the one I created for David. A few people from the support group hired me to make theirs, and word started to spread. For the first time since David passed, I felt like I had a real purpose again, something more than just getting by. The difference between my progress and my parents' downfall became even clearer when they suddenly showed up at my apartment again. This time, they brought a printed spreadsheet listing all their debts. "We need $150,000 to catch up on the mortgage and stop the bank from taking the house," my dad said. His usual confident voice now sounded desperate. I let them inside, not because I felt guilty, but because I was curious to hear what they had to say now that they were finally facing the results of their choices. "What about selling the boat?" I asked, pointing toward the dining table, so they could sit down. "We'd lose money on it," my dad said, sounding frustrated. "And the timeshare?" I asked. "We've tried," my mom said quickly, "but the market's really bad. And anyway, those are our retirement comforts." I almost laughed at how ridiculous it sounded. Luxuries you can't afford, I said. We could afford them, with your help, my father snapped. It's the least you could do after everything we've done for you. I looked at him and asked quietly, what exactly have you done for me? The question hung in the air like a challenge. Just then, the twins walked into the room. John was holding his favorite toy truck, and Jennifer was happily babbling. My parents' faces softened right away. There are our sweet babies, my mom said, reaching out for Jennifer. Jennifer quickly moved behind my legs, hiding. They don't know you, I said calmly. You've seen them what 4 times total? You chose not to be part of their lives. That's not fair, my dad argued. We're busy people. Too busy for your only grandchildren? Too busy to help your daughter during emergency surgery? But not too busy to keep asking for money. I said, my voice steady. I think that shows what really matters to you. My mom's face dropped. Whether it was real sadness or just another way to get sympathy, I couldn't tell anymore. If you don't help, we'll lose everything, she whispered. I lost my husband, I replied calmly, and my children lost their father. We made it through. So will you. For months after my surgery, my parents finally had to face the truth. They sold their house to avoid losing it. Mary kept me informed, but I stayed distant. They ended up in a much smaller condo, nowhere near their old 5,000 square foot lakefront home. My dad sold his boat for less than it was worth. They also got rid of the timeshare, losing money on that too. They're still blaming you for all of it, Mary told me during one of her weekly visits. They keep saying you promised to support them forever, and then just walked away. Let them say whatever they want, I replied, feeling surprisingly calm. The truth speaks for itself. And it really did. Most of our extended family had taken my side after learning the full story. Even my dad's sister, who had always defended him, called to say she was shocked they refused to help me during surgery. Meanwhile, my own life had changed in the best ways. Michelle from my support group helped me buy a small 2-bedroom house in a nice, family-friendly neighborhood. The mortgage was actually cheaper than what I used to pay for rent. For the first time, the twins had a backyard to run and play in. And my side business, making memorial websites, was growing fast. I was able to cut back on some of my graphic design work and focus more on projects that felt meaningful to me. Laura still helped with childcare 4 days a week, but I changed my schedule so I could spend more time with John and Jennifer. The best part was that I had found a real community. When we moved into our new home, neighbors brought casseroles. The support group arranged playdates for the kids. Mary and I had grown close. She now felt like a real sister, not just someone I used to compete with for our parents' attention. Even Linda, the nurse from the hospital, visited sometimes with her own kids. I had lost my husband and cut off contact with my parents, yet somehow, I felt less alone than ever before. 7 months after my surgery, I received a letter, an actual handwritten letter from my mother. I almost threw it away without reading it, but curiosity got the better of me. Inside was something I had never seen from her before, a real apology. I've had time to think about my actions, she wrote. Watching you build a life without our help made me face some hard truths about myself as a mother. I was jealous of your strength and independence. I was upset that you didn't need me the way I needed my own mother. But now I understand. You did need me, just not in the way I expected. When you asked us to watch the twins during your surgery, you were reaching out. And we failed you. I'm truly sorry. She went on to explain how they had changed their lifestyle. My dad had taken a part-time job at a local hardware store. They had sold most of their expensive things and were now living simply for the first time in years. She didn't ask me for money. She didn't even ask for forgiveness, only that I accept her apology. I showed the letter to Mary, who didn't fully trust it. They've been talking about writing to you for weeks, she told me. Dad didn't want to at first. But after his health scare last month, I think he's starting to see things differently. Health scare? I asked, feeling concerned, even though I tried not to be. Just high blood pressure and chest pain, Mary said. But it scared him. He's on medication now, and actually listening to the doctor for once. I think realizing how fragile life is has made him think. I wasn't ready to write back right away. I needed time to understand my own feelings. Was the letter real, or just another way to pull me back in? Had they truly changed, or were they just using a new approach? That night, I looked at old family photos for the first time since cutting ties. Behind the smiling faces, I saw things I hadn't noticed before. My parents had always acted like perfect parents, but in truth, they mostly put themselves first. 1 year after my surgery, I finally agreed to meet my parents. We chose a quiet cafe near my new home, a neutral place where I could feel safe and in control. When they walked in, I hardly recognized them. My dad looked different. He didn't stand tall and proud like he used to. He looked smaller, quieter. My mom wasn't dressed in her usual expensive clothes. Instead, she wore simple, practical clothes. The twins were spending the afternoon with Mary. I wasn't ready to bring them into this yet. We sat together in silence for a while. It was uncomfortable. Then, something surprising happened. My father started to cry. "I've been a terrible father," he said, his voice shaking. "And an even worse grandfather. I don't expect you to forgive me, but I need you to know, I finally understand how selfish we've been." My mom reached across the table, not touching my hand, but reaching toward it. "We've been in family therapy for months," she said. "It was Mary's idea. We didn't want to go at first, but it's helped us see things differently." I didn't rush to forgive them. I didn't make any promises. Instead, I showed them photos of the twins and told them about our new life. For once, they listened quietly. They didn't interrupt or make the conversation about themselves. As we got up to leave, my father asked softly, "Do you think we could get to know the twins someday?" I thought about it for a moment before answering. "That depends on what you do, not what you say," I replied. "If you're really serious about changing, we can start with short, supervised visits. But understand this, my children will only have relationships with people who respect their mother." As I walked away from that meeting, I didn't feel guilt or anger like I used to. Instead, I felt calm and strong, like someone who knew her worth. Maybe my parents would truly change, maybe not. But I had already changed. I was no longer a daughter begging for approval. I was a mother, strong and clear, protecting her children and standing firm in her boundaries.